Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Today I'm back with another market analysis, and today I kind of wanted to talk about how the real world economy is affecting old school RuneScape. Now for those who are living under a rock, we're in a pretty severe recession right now, or we're close to being in a recession. Not going to talk about why because, well, my video is going to get demonetized, and there's not enough people at YouTube working right now to re-monetize my video, but I'm sure pretty much everyone is aware why. People can't work, everyone's at home, people are spending less money, stock market's crashed, and the economy is way down. And in my opinion, I think this has actually had a pretty tangible effect on old school RuneScape, mainly through the increased player counts we're seeing. So I'm going to be talking a bit about that, as well as a few other minor or major updates that has really changed the prices of a few items. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and let's get started. Now let's first start off by looking at probably the easiest metric to track, and that is player counts. Now player counts over the last couple of weeks are way up. Pretty similar actually to when mobile was released. It's that big of a difference. If we go onto a website called Misplaced Items, we can see a historical graph of the player counts throughout the last 7 years, I guess. Now when mobile was released, we went from an average player count of around 55k to 60k, all the way up to 100k. I think 145k or 150k was our all-time peak. Now that initial surge of people did eventually dissipate, but look at that, we're right back up to those player count levels. Now if we go into the last week on Misplaced Items, we can see our average player count is about 135k at peak day, which means the player counts in March versus just last November have pretty much doubled, which is massive. That is so significant. I mean, we are so lucky to play a game that is this resilient that even in the apocalypse, we are thriving. I mean, we may not get as many game updates. I mean, this probably doesn't even need to be said, but I am really so aware of how lucky I am. The two companies I work for, essentially YouTube and RuneScape, just so happen to be completely avoided by this pandemic and actually happen to be thriving in this circumstance because people are so bored at home. They need to do something, so they're playing RuneScape and watching YouTube. Okay, one other metric I sometimes look at is the price of gold on the third-party market. Now, I generally try not to go to these websites in case people get the wrong idea, but I swear I'm just going and looking at it. We can see that the price of gold has actually increased over the last week and a half, which is a pretty strong indicator that there is a much higher demand for gold and RuneScape items. Now, honestly, I kind of thought that could have gone the other way. For example, players would be liquidating their bank maybe to pay rent. That'd be kind of a sad thought, but luckily it seems like boredom is way outweighing frugality in this situation. So anyway, a lot of items have been going up over the last month or even couple months, but specifically over the last couple of weeks, there's been a huge surge in specifically PVM items and items related to PVM. Now, in my opinion, I think the reason this is happening is when we get a big surge in players, especially one like this that is most likely all returning players. I'm sure we are getting some new players, but generally it's mostly people who now have time to play RuneScape and are bored. I don't really know if there's that many new players discovering it. So a lot of experienced or mid-level players are coming back and are wanting to do PVM, so the demand for these items have been rising. For example, looking at the Dragon Warhammer, even this week it's gone from around 46 mil all the way up to 48. We can see the price of Dragon Claws have been increasing really quickly over the last month, going from around 54 mil all the way up to 58 mil just a couple days ago. We have the Saradomin Godsword, which has seen a pretty dramatic increase from the beginning of the month at 34 mil all the way up to 39 mil. The Elysian has made an amazing recovery this year. I'm not really sure if it's really increased that much over the last month. Now, one category of item that has seen a huge change is PVM supplies. For example, prayer potions are now worth 15k each. That's crazy. Over the last month, they've increased by another 2,000, and over the last quarter, they've increased by 30%. And now I know a significant amount of that has to do with the Nightmare being released, but still. Same thing with Super Restores, they are seeing a pretty dramatic increase as well, going from around 12k back in January all the way up to 16k today. But pretty much just across the board, PVM items have been increasing a lot. We got Tacits going from 28 mil all the way up to 30 mil now. We have the Bandos Chestplate going up at a pretty similar rate, and the Armadyl Chestplate as well, again going up maybe about 5 or 10%. And honestly, this is not a bad thing. I think this is a good thing, really. Now, there's no way to say this and not sound like a complete asshole, but This situation has been very beneficial to RuneScape, I think at least, and the economy seems pretty healthy in my opinion. Now next up here, I want to talk about the Pole 70 game improvement blog. This potential update, not even update, has changed the prices of a ton of different items pretty significantly. Now the primary items that were affected are the crystal items from Prifdinus, because if you don't know, they have proposed a few changes to them. The biggest one being that they want to make crystal shards tradable. Now I don't think that's actually going to pass, but we don't really know that yet. And not only are they polling to make the crystal shards tradable, they want to change them so you can dismantle them into crystal shards, which would give most of them an increased value. For example, the crystal weapon seed went from around 80k all the way up to 180k, it's almost doubling in price over the last month. Now interestingly, the update was actually here, so they started to increase before the update. And to be honest, I'm not really sure why. I'm not sure if there is some other reason or insider trading, I don't know. And then next here we have the crystal armor seed that just recently has shot up to about 4 mil each just in the last couple of weeks. Another big one is the crystal tool seed that pretty much immediately shot up from around 500k all the way up to 1 mil, so doubling in price in just a couple of days. Honestly, the only crystal item that hasn't increased in price is the enhanced teleport crystal, and I'm assuming that has to do with the ratio of shards that they give. For example, the enhanced teleport crystal gives 150 shards, but it was already worth 2 mil each. When you compare that to the crystal tool shard that's worth 100 shards each, so only 30% less, and that was actually worth about 4 times less. So by adding a dismantle option to all of these items, their price is now going to be set by the value of crystal shards. Now even if the poll option to make the crystal shard tradable fails, I do think all of these price changes are going to stick and are relevant because crystal shards do have a value beyond monetary value, as you need them for the Blade of Saldor and other pieces of content like divine potions, etc. Now speaking of the Blade of Saldor, it has been going up so quickly. Currently it's worth 156 mil. Now the reason this item is shot up so much is they're looking to make it so that the Blade of Saldor can be charged with 1000 crystal shards and never degrade after that, which would actually make it a pretty viable weapon in a lot of circumstances. So it's gone up from around 90 mil all the way up to 150, so it's almost doubled in price. And this item is pretty rare, so it's probably going to continue going upwards, but this will probably make the gauntlet a bit more popular. Another interesting change is to the wilderness weapons. And once again, they want to add a dismantle option to dismantle it into Revenant Ether, to be precise 7500 Revenant Ether. Now Revenant Ether is worth 175 each, which means any Revenant weapon drop should be worth at least 1.3 mil, which means the Thamron Scepter was forced up in price to around 1.3 mil. We can see it pretty much exactly. Now the other two items are actually more expensive than that and have actually decreased in price. And finally here we have the Burnt Page, which they are straight up buffing the drop rate by double, which you can see pretty soon after the update. They dropped from 6k each all the way down to 5k and are continuing to crash. So that really just goes to show how impactful even just polls are. These are not updates in the game yet. This is all speculation, but I just find it so fascinating how quickly the market adapts, which really makes the RuneScape economy feel very authentic and real. Alright, and finally here I want to talk about the nightmare items, and one interesting thing that happened this month is the drop rate for the nightmare items got buffed significantly. However, one thing I find really interesting is most of the items actually didn't change in price that much. The only item that really has seen a significant change in price is the Nightmare Staff. The rest of the items maybe have decreased a bit, but it's kind of hard to say if that even had anything to do with the update, or if they're just naturally decreasing because there is more volume and quantity in the game. So the buff to the drop table was on March 12th, and we do see that the Nightmare Staff specifically dropped by about 30 mil and has continued to plummet after that. So the Nightmare Staff, yes, has definitely tanked in value, partially because of the buff to the drop table. However, the Inquisitor's Mace actually went up in value after the drop buff came through. Now it has recently dropped again, but I don't really know if that has anything to do with the actual drop rate. The Inquisitor's Great Helm has also increased in price since the buff. The Harmonized Orb maybe has decreased a bit, but I don't really think that has much to do with the update. So I want to pose a question to you. Why do you think the Nightmare drops really just haven't dropped that much? Doubling the drop rate of most items would generally significantly decrease their price, but in this case, that hasn't happened. I personally think that it's because the items are still so rare that there's still a high demand for it, even with their increased rate of being dropped. And they were just so incredibly rare before that even doubling the drop rate, they're still pretty damn rare. So it does take a long time to get the drops, partly because that is just the natural progression. Also, now that the Nightmare Uniques as well as the regular drops have been buffed pretty significantly, I think a lot more people are going to be doing it. And we can see that reflected in some of the better items to take there. For example, the Abyssal Bludgeon is up about 10 mil over the last month again, and the Scythe Divider is on an upward trajectory as well, which pretty much tells us that the content is much more popular. Anyway guys, that is going to be it for this month's economic analysis. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you left a video like. Thanks for watching guys.